Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast, where each week we speak with brands, icons, innovators, and trailblazers within the fly fishing industry, exploring both the successes and failures they've encountered along the way to become who they are today. But first, if you have not yet subscribed to the podcast or joined our email list, please do so by going to the flyfisherinsiderpodcast.com, or you can also find us on Instagram at Fly Fisher Insider Podcast. Now let's begin. Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. Today our guest, Tate Cunningham from the Moonshine Fly Rod Company. Tate, welcome to the show.
Hey Greg, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man, I know we've been trying to make this one happen for one of the longer ones I've been trying to make happen, but we finally got you here, so I don't want to waste any time. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Tell us everything that you got going on. We're going to learn all about that, but tell me how you, Tate, got into fly fishing.
Yeah, so I'm from Southwest Oklahoma. I grew up on a farm there, and of course, growing up on the farm, you have things like fishing and hunting, all things outdoors. So I've had a love of fishing from a really early age. My dad and my grandparents taking me fishing there, but that wasn't with the fly rod initially. That wasn't until, quite a bit later into my late 20s that I first discovered fly fishing. And in my former life, I was a musician, so I traveled around quite a bit. And there was a day off that I had on tour, and I found myself in Colorado Springs. And I have a lot of buddies that live out there. And my buddy Jared, he called me and he said, "Hey, man, there's this place called Deckers that I would love to take you fly fishing. Have you ever done that before?" And I said, "No, I haven't, but I've always wanted to try it." So we roll up to Deckers, and of course he pulls out all of his different gear and contraptions, which was completely different from, the conventional way of fishing that I knew. But I'm such a gearhead. I just loved all the different stuff. I had no idea what everything really was, but it looked fun. And, we put on our waders and laced up our rods, and I found myself standing in the middle of this really beautiful river and just a scenic view. And I was like, man, what is this? Like it was just an instant, love for the sport. And, I hung up my golf clubs after that day, and it's pretty much been downhill ever since.
So no more golfing for you?
Pretty much stopped right there. Yeah. So I have a lot of buddies that golf and they love it. And I love golf too. I mean, to be honest, I'm really there for the hang as much as anything, but, I wasn't that much of a golfer to begin with. So, I took to fly fishing a lot better than I did golf, put it that way.
No, I'm much the same in that regards too. I put my golf clubs away, and well, I think I sold them now. So, Tate, you mentioned you were a musician. I actually never knew that. Tell me about that, and really quickly, just to digress here. Tell me about were you in a rock band or something? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, I met some bandmates in college, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and, a very, very long story short, we're young coming out of school and, have the dream like so many people do at a young age that we all just loaded up in 2004 and we moved to Nashville and sort of were trying to chase it down. So yeah, let's see. I think it took us almost 3 years of just playing out. And, I did some studio work meanwhile with doing publishing demos and things like that, just really doing anything and grinding just to be a musician. So, if you're sort of like a decent musician and, in the middle of nowhere, and then you come into Nashville, you find really quick that you're not that great. So it's number one, it's really humbling to come to Nashville. Yeah. But it really challenges your work ethic and And so we worked really hard at that, and we ultimately signed with Universal Records in 2007, and I did that for almost a decade of traveling around. I mean, we weren't a big band by any means, but we made a living at it at best, and had a lot of fun and cool experiences. So that was a big chunk of my younger years. And of course, my wife and I, when we started having children, it was sort of doable when my son came along. Mm-hmm. And I was still touring at that time, and then I had a daughter a little over 3 years later. And somebody told me once, 1 is 1 and 2 is 10 in terms of children, and man, that was very true. So, I say it was tough for me, but who it was really tough for was my wife, Chelsea, managing that by herself. And so you kind of just come to the sober realization that, hey, I'm not getting any younger, and you only get one crack with your family, pretty much. And so like, that was the priority. So for all intents and purposes, I hung it up, not too long after she was born. So anyway, that's a very long story, sort of short.
No, I love it though. I definitely love it. I can see how that music kind of influences the direction of. You can see a little bit in the direction of Moonshine Rods and whatnot. So, and here's where I want to go with that. With Moonshine Rods is basically,
yeah.
So you started a rod company, like, so your love of fly fishing transpired into starting a rod company. Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't just happen. And you guys did a fantastic job of starting a rod company. Tell us about how that started, and especially in the early days, like who you have a partner in this business and who that is and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, to be honest, I really got lucky in terms of, my role here and just the timing of it all. So, my partner and our CEO, Nick, he and his brother actually started the company, back in, well, the original roots of what Moonshine was is they were originally a pipe company, a tobacco pipe company to be specific. So like, your classic, traditional style tobacco pipes. So his younger brother, John, he loved turning wood and just making things with his hands, which he's just super creative in the shop. And then Nick, his brother, who happened to be my former roommate in college, he's sort of the opposite from his brother in terms of, he's not as heavy on the creative and is just a really smart businessman, and has been really successful more in the tech space. But both of them always loved fishing, even though they were doing the pipe company. But sort of the long story short on that is, there was a bunch of new government regs introduced, and they basically just wanted to get out of that. And so they found themselves like, okay, what do we want to do now? And they were like, hey, what about fly rods? Because they were both really into it, and sort of their hand was sort of forced with those new regs to do something different anyway.
Yeah.
And so, Nick calls me one day, and I can't remember what year this was. I think it was 16, and just sort of got my opinion on it, which was, I told him what I knew, but in reality it was mostly limited in terms of like all things, rod building and that side of the industry itself. So I gave him my thoughts about it. And so meanwhile, while I was still on the road, Nick and John were off and running, and they were wrapping rods up in Virginia, and that was sort of the first evolution of the Midnight Special, and it just sort of grew from there. And so when I came along as sort of a late co-founder, this was the very end of 17. We had already started to see some pretty rapid growth, and it just happened to be great timing from when I left off my music career and was looking to do something different. And they're like, hey, we need some help. And and I pretty much got thrown in the deep end, which, you know, if you know anything about the music industry, you know, being thrown in the deep end and having to figure things out of nothing, like I'm very used to that, and I sort of thrive there, to be honest with you. So, yeah, man, it's been quite a journey from 17 until now, and I've learned a heck of a lot. All of us have learned a ton, and
Yeah.
we've just grown from there. And it's been really surprising. It's been super humbling, and we've certainly had our bumps, but man, we just continue to learn and pick up where we left off, and hopefully we just keep making better and better moves and better stuff.
I think one of the coolest things you mentioned is that how you and then the other partners each bring a quality to this business and whatnot. So how do you find that, like that, that intricate, or how that makes it? Do you find that that's the actual success model? Like, because each of you have a specialty aspect, that's why the growth and the response has been so positive, due to those components you guys have? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's the sum of its parts. I think there's a lot of different factors, but at least between the three of us, I would say it, you know, from the get-go, it was pretty well balanced, because on one end of the spectrum, you have John, who's like a total artist type, super creative guy, but he might not be the most versed guy in, you know, like crunching numbers and Excel spreadsheets, that sort of thing. Whereas Nick, you know, he's very much on that side. You know, he comes from high tech, and he was a high level executive in that space. And so like, that's his wheelhouse. Right. So, you know, I like the term, you know, it takes a village, and it very much is that, you know, like if everybody was like John, or if everybody was like Nick, you know, I don't think it would work. But because you have those two extremes, you know, it really, you're utilizing everybody's strengths. And I would say I find myself somewhere in the middle of that. So, yeah.
Cool. What are some of the challenges you guys faced collaboratively together, like as a brand?
You mean like, in terms of just us, like between the three of us,
and let's just say
as the company, or just like the general space
as a brand growing. I mean, here's three guys get together, you start this awesome brand, and I mean, like, you know, you didn't get to where you are without any failures or challenges or hurdles or obstacles. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like, what are some of those for inspiration?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're a new rod company and that's what you want to do, it's, you know, certainly there are a lot of amazing brands that are out there and amazing rod makers that we really look up to, and they've been around for a very, very long time. And of course they're the tastemakers, and they do a lot of things right. So I think trying to break into something like that everybody knows and everybody loves, I mean, that's pretty challenging. I mean, I kind of liken it to being like the new kid at school, you know, that shows up their sophomore year, and everybody has sort of their own groups and leaders within that school or whatever. And, you know, so it's sort of challenging to bust into that. But for us, you know, I think to a point we kind of just had our blinders on, and we just knew that if we work really, really hard and really listen to our customers and their feedback, and, you know, not to sound all pitchy or whatever, but like our customer service, like that is number one for us. So, you know, we do whatever we can, and we bend over backwards for our customers and do things right, treat them right. And if there's an issue, we fix it as fast as humanly possible. So I think that's part of the way we sort of, you know, raise our hand, you know, amongst those other people that have been at it forever. And I mean, to me, there's no shortcut. There's no way around hard work, and that's sort of what we know to do. And meanwhile, just keep plugging away and putting out better stuff.
I definitely think I agree with what you're saying, and I definitely think it's safe to say that your customers have noticed the hard work that you guys are putting in,
Hmm.
and the feedback that they're giving you. But just for those listeners that are out there, what is some of the
Yeah.
feedback that you guys are getting as a on the company as a whole?
Yeah. So, I think one thing that we found that's really interesting and that's sort of a hot topic is where rods are made. There's definitely a certain group of people that, there's stuff that's made in China, like, a lot of people really look down on that, and they will just say that, like, if it's made in China, it's not a good rod. I mean, I would argue that that can definitely be true, but that's not always true.
Yeah.
Certainly there's a lot of makers that make stuff in China. And certainly there's a lot of rods that aren't great from China. But at the same time, like, we also wanted to figure out a way to give people what they want. And for whatever reason, Korea is a lot more accepted in terms of where rods are made. So one thing that we've done outside of just, the feedback on individual rods and what they want, like features and things within the rod itself, is just where they're made. So we've made a lot of effort into moving things out of China and into Korea. And so, the new Vesper comes out of there, the new Outcast and Epiphany that are coming out here pretty soon, those will be coming out of Korea too. So all to say, there's nothing wrong with, unless it's just a complete political difference, and I don't want to get into any of that. Like, there's nothing wrong with rods that come out of China, and that's all that people can afford. But we also want to give people the option if they want a rod that's made in Korea, and rods that we wrap here in the U.S. We want to give that to our customers if that's what they're looking for. And so for us to do that in Korea and give it at a really, really competitive, fair price, like, we're going to be able to do that. And that's something we're really proud of.
Yeah, you know what though, and I'm going to speak frankly here. If your rods come from when you say your rods come from Korea, I can think of 3 other rod companies that, and some of them are big,
Mm-hmm.
and their reels come from Korea, or
Mm-hmm.
their rods come from Korea.
That's right.
And you know what? It's not new. This is not new.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong with that. And I mean, you guys are putting the technology
Right.
into the tapers and the R&D into stuff. So I mean, really,
Mm-hmm.
they're doing it so that your
Mm-hmm.
consumers can get an affordable price, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think all of us would, if we could, we would make everything here. I don't think any rod manufacturer here in the U.S. would say otherwise, but
yeah,
I mean, you just can't make a rod in the U.S. for $200. I mean, we've actually tried to figure some of those things out, and we've spent some money doing it.
yeah.
Taking trips up to different places in the U.S. and meeting with people that are rolling blanks, and we tried, but it's just not possible.
100%. Right?
So, so yeah. So, to give people a really good rod at an affordable price, I mean, that's what's really important to us. And that's not something that we plan on abandoning anytime soon.
No, I mean that's what you guys. That's what's awesome about it. That's what's awesome about Moonshine is, like, you want a quality rod at an
Mm-hmm.
affordable price. It's a great, you know what I mean. It's an option.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely an option, and that's I'm all on board for that for sure. So, Tate, you guys,
Cool.
we talk about the R&D, and we talk about this. Tell me a bit, and I know
Mm-hmm.
you have other areas of the business, but just give me a general scope of
Mm-hmm.
how that's going, and how you guys are doing that, and how you guys are building and always pushing
Sure.
that boundary forward to, again, deliver quality products to the consumers.
In terms of developing new products, like,
Yeah,
how do we do
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah. So, man, I wish we could say, like, we had, Steve Rajeff on our team, or, other amazing rod designers that are out there. But look, we're still a pretty young
yeah,
company. And so, the way that we have to do it is working with third-party engineers, and we get action samples. We basically start with what we're looking for, and we work with those engineers and we get action samples, and we send those out to different people we trust, and we get their feedback with what they think about it and what they wish is different. And we sort of take all of that information and tweak that. If everybody's saying the same thing, it's kind of a no-brainer for us. If one person's saying, if everybody's saying something a little bit different, then we sort of have to hone in a little bit more on specifics. So, all of the aesthetics, I think that's something, not to wave our flag, but I feel like that's something we've always been pretty good at, especially coming from, the pipe world and learning to make beautiful things with our hands. And so we're really pretty decent at, making a really beautiful rod. But what we really want to do now is not just make a beautiful rod, but just continue to make like better rods, better components. Not just listening from people we trust on our R&D side, but even just our customers and like what they want, like what they wish the current outcast, what they wish it had more of. And so that's sort of the type of thing we want to deliver on the second outcast, and so on and so forth.
No, I hear you. And it's funny you mentioned, like, as long as you're taking that feed, my thoughts are always like, if you have a rod or a fly line or whatever it is, and you give it to your ambassadors that you trust. I'm a big fan, and I interview a lot of brands, and it's the same thing. From the ambassadors, they get it, they listen, they take our feedback, they retool it, they bring it back to us. It's the companies that are like, oh, okay, thanks for bringing that to our attention, and don't do anything. That's where the challenges lie. So I'm glad you guys are listening. Right. Definitely listening to the ambassadors on that, or the R&D team for sure. So yeah, and the consumers, but that's a hard one there. So everyone has an opinion on stuff like that. It is. For sure.
It is. It's all very challenging, but I think that, just listening to your customers and listening to that feedback. I mean, we have to get outside of ourselves, when developing new stuff, because, when you're doing the same thing every day and it's sort of right in front of you, it's sort of like you can't see the forest for the trees type of thing. So, we really do our best to listen to, like I said, our customers and our ambassadors and guides that are on our program and all the above,
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Tate, let's talk about the rod lineup. You mentioned a few of them earlier in the show. For those, again, how many do you have in the lineup? What are they? What does each one feature? To walk us through your amazing rod lineup.
Yeah. So, starting with the Drifter series, that rod is $199. It's a medium action rod. It's a great, I don't like to say an entry level rod, but in some ways it is. But it's a great rod for anybody. I mean, that wants to. It's a great river rod. I mean, it's one of those rods that can really take some punishment with the type of graphite we're using on it. I love that it's medium action. It's a lot more forgiving for new casters, as opposed to a really fast action rod. And it's the first time you pick up a fly rod. So, that's our Drifter series. It goes from 3-weight up to 8-weight. And then we have our Outcast series, which is more saltwater specific. And it's a fast action rod. And that one will be the new Outcast 2 that's about to come out. That will be 7-weight through 11-weight. And we really upgraded components on that, using high modulus graphite on that. So that's that series in a nutshell. And then we have our Epiphany series, which is our Euro rod. That's the other one that's about to be updated. Again, this one is a really tangible upgrade from the original one. Again, really high quality components, high modulus graphite. We shaved over an ounce off of this rod, which, for your listeners that know what an ounce is, like, that's like bricks in the rod world when it comes to the total weight. So we're really pumped about that. Improved the swing weight a lot on it.
What's the length? What's the length on it? Is it 10 foot?
So the new one will be, yes, sir. So the new one will be 2-weight, 10'4", and then we'll have a 3-weight, 10'6", which is really common.
Yeah.
And then we're also doing a 4-weight, 10-footer. So yeah, that'll come in less than $300, and we put TISIC stripping guide on it, light wire single foot. Yeah, it's a really, I mean, I'm biased, of course, but it's an awesome rod for the money. We're really excited about this rod. So that's the Epiphany series in a nutshell. And then we have a Revival series, which is the glass rod. We only offered that one in a 3-weight and a 5-weight right now. We're getting a lot of requests for 4-weights, and we might pull the trigger on that at some point, but that's what we have for now. And then I would say our well, I forgot the Midnight Special. So the Midnight Special is another rod that we have that's the one where John really does his thing with reel seats, and he kind of comes up with all sorts of different stuff. It's a fast action rod. That's one that we wrap here in the U.S. and, it's a great rod. People love that rod. They love it. I think the thing we get the most about that feedback wise is they just love how it casts. It's just almost everybody across the board loves how it feels when they cast that rod. And then I would say our new flagship series rod is this new Vesper series, and that one came out in May. I mean, it has just everything premium you would want on a rod. I mean, we put into that. We didn't put to keep our costs down on that we're giving to the consumer. Like we got rid of stuff like an aluminum rod tube and things like that. I mean, it's just little things that we try to do to like pack as much as we could into this rod that would just make it awesome. But like at the same time, not charge like an extraordinary price for it. So that one we're really excited about, getting a ton of feedback about that just, it seems like across the board, people are really stoked on that rod. Let me see. Am I leaving anything out? Our Rambler series. So we've dipped our foot into the conventional side. We have 3 offerings on that rod. So Fuji reel seats. We're using American Tackle micro guides. It's a pretty cool little stick. So yeah, that's the Rambler. So yeah, that's pretty much everything in a nutshell.
Crazy. That's quite a few rods in the lineup there. So I always like the names that you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Do you guys just like put names in a hat and pick, or like is it special meaning behind them? Like walk me through that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sort of. We'll just throw a bunch of names out there, and if we feel like there's no like crazy way we're picking names. I mean, I just think if it sort of vibes with our brand and what we're doing, like it just sort of sticks out. But yeah, we'll all throw names out there on the Slack channel, and we'll pick the one we like the most.
I like it because they do kind of go with the brand, right? I was listening, I was like, yeah. So it's got again that rock and roll vibe, which is kind of cool. So, you know what? It's funny you mentioned about the conventional world that you guys are branching into that slowly, or are you guys going head first into it, or it's like, first of all, many questions. A lot of brands are doing that. A lot of people see the value in that, especially as a rod company, and whatnot. Like, walk me through how that transpired, what your thoughts are, how the reception to the conventional world is. I mean, that's a whole new beast.
It's a totally new beast. And I think at the most, at its simplest form, I think that, I think there's a lot of us out there, as much as we love fly fishing and that's all we want to do all the time. Sometimes we just want to pick up a spinning rod, like whatever that particular situation is, especially, some of the inshore salt guys or, whatever it is, they're just like, man, I just don't want to do that thing today. I want to throw my spin rod. And, so yeah, I mean, also I think conventional is like probably 50x, against fly fishing. So it's a much bigger market. It's a lot more crowded and competitive. So, I wouldn't say we're diving head first into it. Not because we're not willing to do that per se. I think that we just wanted to put those out there for the customers that wanted to do both. Mm-hmm. And, if that series gets legs and more people are buying it and they're loving it, then, hey, we might expand on that side. Full disclosure, I think there was a part of us that, with the fly community, there'd be some pushback about doing some conventional stuff. But, I think, like you said, a lot of brands are sort of doing that now, and they just want, people like options. They love to have options. Yeah, and sure. I think just giving them that option is a great way to go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Plus, if that it's a Moonshine Fly Rod is quality fly rod, that's going to transpire over. The warranty is going to transpire over. Everything in the build's going to transpire over into a conventional rod. So, I mean, it's a rod that you can trust. Again, at an affordable price in this case, right? Which, again, for sure, super important. And like I said, I mean, it's nothing new. There's a lot of fly rod manufacturers that are quietly or fully, immersed into getting into the conventional market. So, I mean, again, like you say, when you look at that market, it is 50x compared to fly fishing. So it's huge, huge. And I mean, these other companies.
So from a bit,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, from a business perspective, it's sort of appealing because it is so much bigger. But I think for us, it didn't start as that, on the conventional. I think it was more like, what do our customers want? And that's why we did it. So if it happens to take off on that side, then great. Like, we'll keep pushing that. But first and foremost, it was all about what our customers were looking for. So, yeah.
Cool.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So, you'll have to keep us posted. I'm sure we'll follow along closely, though. Tate, one of the things that you talk about your customers and whatnot, and one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm sure like you'd have to be blind not to notice, is you guys have built up a massive following on social media, and you did it in a short period of time. You're active on social media, so whoever's doing that, by the way, at Moonshine, congrats! You're rocking it. I need to take tips from that person. Basically, and yet you guys you're featuring and distributing, like you've cut out the shops, in a sense. So you've built that following to your customer direct. Walk me through how that's all taking place, why that route, you know what I mean? And the social media aspect of it and why that's important for the brand as well. Cause that's, to me, that's like the culture. That's where I discovered you guys and followed along as well and became involved with Moonshine. So,
yeah. So I think, we started out as direct to consumer, not because we were like anti, brick and mortar and doing wholesale and that road. It was like a really cost effective way for us to start a business with like as little overhead as possible. And so naturally doing direct to consumer, I mean, you are dealing more on everything, the internet, which as everybody knows has its pluses and minuses. I have to give a lot of credit to John on the social media side initially. I mean, he did a lot of live videos where it's showing building rods, we do a lot of reposts of our customers catching fish and, sort of trying to like make more of a community of everybody as opposed to just like everything is about us and look how cool we are or whatever, it's just trying to build a sense of community rather than just waving the Moonshine flag all over the place. So, I think, social media is like, it's a blessing and a curse in some ways, but I think for the most part, it's a really great tool to reach people and to interact with people and, to get the word out there and just to share each other's love and passion for fly fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys have really created a Moonshine culture organically. Do you know what I mean by that? By reposting, and I think that's really cool. Is like, you're sharing someone's success of catching that fish with your rod or without your rod. I mean, you guys, I've seen both on social media, which is really cool.
Yep.
And I think I can tell that your followers and whatnot totally appreciate and like that. So definitely going forward. With social media, I know you say it's a blessing and a curse as well, and I have that same experience. Yeah. How important is it to you guys for growth?
For social media, I mean, I think it's definitely important to growth, but I think putting all your eggs in one basket is a bad idea too. So, I think besides social media, just the continuation in the background of just treating customers right and doing good things for them and making great products. I mean, when you have a great experience with a customer, you're going to go tell your buddy about it, most likely, and if you have a bad experience with a company, like, you're probably going to do the same thing. So as valuable as social media can be, it's everything that goes on behind the scenes as well that is crucial to, I think, any business's growth. Mm-hmm. So, that's really the tip of the spear that we'll continue to push forward, is just really taking care of our customers and listening to them. And, everything that goes on social media, hopefully that's just all a bonus and a continuation of the culture and community we're trying to create.
Hopefully. Yeah, I'm sure it is, Tate. I mean, without a doubt, you guys have created that. So for sure, let's fast forward here. 5 years from now, where do you think you see yourself? Where would you like to be yourself? Money's no object.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, man, that's a big question. I mean, I love the thought of that we will just continue to be a brand that, and I know it sounds redundant, but this is how I feel. I just hope that we're a brand that will never lose sight of its roots and where we started, and making really good rods that people can afford and don't have to shell out a bunch of money to go have a great time on the river, and that, that we're a company that's known to take care of the customers and treat folks right. I know that kind of sounds cheesy, but like, that's pretty important to us. I think customer service for a lot of companies has really gone down the drain. And I'm not I'm not talking about in the fly fishing industry. I'm talking about all industries.
In general, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, if that's something that we can hang on to, that's really what I hope that we do. And especially companies that continue to grow and as they get bigger, and they build more infrastructure and scale, like, that's very easy to leave behind. So I think all of us here, that's really important to us. And that's, customer service and just making awesome products. And that's the goal. Make better products, listen to customers, treat them right. I mean, that's what I hope in 5 years.
It's a good goal, my friend. Definitely. And I couldn't agree more with you. Customer service, man. Shitty is the new normal. You know what I mean? In everything. It blows my mind. And, just to digress for a sec, it's funny, how many times have we all gone to a restaurant, we've had a shitty meal, and they're like, "Oh, here's a free dessert." And I'm like, "Actually, I don't want any more food from here." You know what I mean? That's not going to solve. That's not going to solve the problem. I want my check and I want to go, or I don't want a check, but I want to go. You know what I mean? It's just funny. Shitty is the new normal, and people, we're coming to accept it. And I think we got to, as brands and as companies and podcasts, whatever it is, we got to step that up, man. And take it back. I agree with that. So
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, it's, fly fishing rods and fly fishing equipment is not cheap, so it's, we really try to avoid, giving the sale and high-fiving each other and move on. We want to be there after the sale if they need it, mm-hmm. And, if something's not right, we want to fix it. Oh, and I have to add on to your, what what do I hope happens in 5 years? I hope I get to go fishing more in 5 years because we are so busy as a small company. Like, man, we all pretty much live vicariously through everybody else. The fishing has gone way down. So I always joke with people, if they love fishing, don't get into the fly rod business.
Or any fly fishing business. Just how,
yeah, exactly.
How it works. Includes podcasts. You know what I mean? It includes podcasts.
But yeah, all jokes aside, like, I'm super stoked to be a part of it and just to be able to pivot to another passion and, watch people have awesome memories and, customers sending up their photos or videos of things that they've done and where they fished and what they're planning on doing. So that's super fun for us too. We might not always get to be out on the water, but it's cool to watch their experience as well. Well,
I hope you do get out on the water a bit more. If you had an opportunity to go, where would you like to go?
Man, there's a lot of places I would like to go, but I would really love to go down to Patagonia. I know that's sort of a cookie cutter answer for a lot of people, and that's been around for a long time, is like this hot spot to go, but I've never done it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of do you remember the old Trout Bomb, Trout Bomb videos in like the mid 2000s?
The original. Yes.
Yeah. Those originals. I love those videos, and I think that's a big reason why I've always wanted to do it, and I haven't done it yet. So hopefully one of these days I'll get to head down there and fish. So there's a lot of places, but I would say that's high on the list.
Awesome. Well, I hope that happens for you guys, man. And I'm sure you'll get down there. So, definitely. So,
thanks, man.
Tate, I got to ask you, any last words here for any listeners out there before I let you go?
Man. Thanks. I just appreciate you guys having us on and get to talk a little bit about our company. And if you guys are looking for a fly rod, we know a guy, so give us a shout.
Where can they find you?
So go to moonshinerods.com. That's our website, and you can find us there. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can find some retailers at the bottom there if you want to find our rods in stores. So it's not a very big list, but it's slowly growing there. We're getting more stuff into brick and mortar, so you can check it out there. Cool. But yeah, check us out and shoot us an email anytime. You'll have somebody that'll get back to you probably within 10 or 15 minutes.
I'm definitely going to have to make sure I put all those details within the show notes. And, I have a personal question before I let you go. I think the question that I've been wanting to ask this whole interview is, what was the name of the band that you played in?
Oh, the name of the band was Safety Suit.
Safety Suit?
Safety Suit, all one word. Yeah.
Cool.
We were a rock pop band back in the day. So, yeah, it was a fun ride while it lasted.
Not like a Men in Hats kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
No, that's cool. All right, Tate, I'm going to make sure I put all those details within the show notes. So, listeners, I want to thank you guys.
Cool.
Thanks a lot, Tate. You've been listening to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. If you like this podcast episode, please let us know. Leave a review and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast listening platform.